Um, welcome to Self and Non-Self Practices for Developing Virtue, Meditation, and Wisdom. My name is Sarah, and I work at the Barre Center for Buddhist Studies. I'll be here to support you through these 4 weeks. And I just wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to this course and grateful for your presence and just kind of getting a few nuts and bolts, a few nitty-gritty details off the bat. So this course will take place for the next 4 weeks. Same Zoom link, so the Zoom link you're on now, just be using every Tuesday evening. And this meeting is being recorded. So you'll have access to the recording after each meeting. That'll be shared in the Google Doc. I'll put it in the chat now, but it will be posted after every session, along with the session notes for the following week. So, and you received all this info in the welcome letter. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at contact@buddhistinquiry.org. If you'd like to turn on captions, you can go to the bottom of your screen and under live transcript, just click show subtitle, and then you'll be able to kind of follow along and the subtitles show up here. But if you have any trouble, anything kind of comes up along the way, feel free to reach out either through the contact box or by using the chat and sending a message to me, and we can troubleshoot and figure it out. And that's all for the boring technical things. We'll move on to the actual substance of the course. So it's so lucky to have Ayya Santussika here with us. She is a Theravada bhikkhuni who's trained and practicing in the Thai forest tradition. Her faith in the Dhamma developed during many visits to the monasteries of Ajahn and his disciples in Thailand, America, England, New Zealand, and Australia, beginning in 1998. She's been training as a nun since 2005 in large and small monasteries in both England and America. In 2012, she received full ordination as a bhikkhuni and founded Karuna Buddhist Vihara, where she currently lives, located in the Santa Cruz Mountains near Boulder Creek, California, which she's calling in from. Her Dhamma teachings are primarily based on the Pali Suttas, and we'll really get into some of those Pali Suttas over the course of these 4 weeks. So with that, thanks again for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for all your support, and to the Barre Center for providing this platform for us to get together in this way. I think the first thing I want to say is that it's very inspiring to me that you would choose to do this on a Tuesday or any day. And there are plenty of other things we could be doing, but to really have an interest in delving into what the Buddha taught and this idea of self and non-self, I think is something that's really quite special. So thank you for that and for your practice. And that really sets the tone, I think, this kind of appreciation and inspiration for what we're going to talk about today. Because today we're going to focus on the idea of self in the way that the Buddha talked about it. So for each session, we're going to be looking at, we're going to first start with a Dhamma teaching, and then we'll have a little time for clarifying questions. So if you have questions about what I say, or you have questions about the study guide material, I know some of you may not have had a chance to look at it yet. If you haven't, hopefully you'll be able to after this session, and then get ahead of the wave and be able to look at the things that get put out every week for these 4 weeks, so that you can have your questions ready. And once we have that little question and answer period, then we'll have a guided meditation and probably spend about 30 minutes. With that, take a short bio break, come back, go into groups for discussion, and then come back again for more Q&A and sharing of what we're learning and what we're experiencing. We really want this course to be focused on experience, focused on practice. Of course, in order to practice with these ideas, we have to understand them. So we'll entirely look to the Buddha's teaching for this from the early Buddhist texts to see what was the point he was making with these teachings. And the purpose that the Buddha had, of course, was that we awaken. So that may or may not be the goal you have in mind for your practice. And of course, it doesn't have to be, because all of us I imagine all of us are interested in relieving suffering, putting as much as possible an end to dukkha in our lives, and the practice, the development of the mind, of virtue and meditation and wisdom is for that very purpose. I always like to think that one of the wonderful things about practicing the Dhamma is that it brings results all along the way. And it does end up in awakening, whether that's our primary goal that's forefront in our mind or not. And awakening just really means freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion. It means the end of all craving, all desiring or wanting to get rid of. And another way to think of it is it's the ultimate mental health. So as we develop ourselves towards that, we experience so much good. And there is a lot of attention that gets paid to the doctrine of non-self, because it was something that the Buddha emphasized a lot. And there also can be some confusion around it. So you know that the Pali word for that is anattā, and that the word for self, attā, without the an in the front of it. So Pali words, often Pali words are formed, the opposite of them is formed by adding an A on the front of the word. And in this case, it's an, because the actual word we're working with, attā, starts with an A, starts with a vowel. So so the opposite of attā, which means self, is anattā. Anattā, not self. And we see that with other things, with other words too. But in this case, we're really looking at two different concepts. And when the Buddha talked about attā, he wasn't referring to a lasting, unchanging kind of essence or self. That's what he refers to when he talks about anattā, which we'll talk about more in the next 3 weeks. But with attā, he's talking about the conventional self. It's like, here you are, I see your faces. And here I am, and we talk to each other, and we move around in the world and do all kinds of things. And this is what the Buddha was referring to, this self that takes action and decides things and develops, if we so choose to practice. And one of the interesting things to consider is that whatever we are doing repetitively is a practice. So when I was doing software design, programming and debugging, that was a practice too. And I thought, is this the practice I want in my life? Nothing wrong with it, of course, in really in the worldly sense. But when we put our attention on what is it we really want to develop, then we ask ourselves, well, what do we want to practice in order to create that change, that development? One of the questions that comes up around this conventional self is whether or not we have free will. And if you had a chance to look at the study guide, you'll see that the first excerpt from the suttas, from the Anguttara Nikaya, is called one's own volition. Volition or free will, the ability to choose what we want to do, what we say, even the way in which we think. You know, the kinds of things we add energy to, not those random thoughts that pop into the mind, but the things we actually ponder, the things we actually organize in our minds. Those are volitional thoughts. And that the Buddha was very clear that he understood that we have volition, we have agency, we have free will, we can choose. And this sutta at the beginning of the study guide talks about it, someone who comes to the Buddha and says that he believes that one does not act under their own volition. And it's interesting because people have been telling us that they hear this from teachers from time to time nowadays. They develop an idea that says we're basically doing everything that we do based on conditioning, and that we don't really operate with free will. We don't really have choice. We just think we have choice. The choices we're making out of deep conditioning, and there's no other option. The Buddha certainly did not think this way. He repeatedly made it clear that we have choice and that our choices matter, that they produce results, that good results come from skillful, loving, honest actions, harmless actions, and painful results come from cruelty, from unskillful actions. And so it's useful to examine this and what do we really think ourselves? Where are we in this understanding? And the Buddha uses a very, very obvious way to talk to this person. He says, so, you know, I can't understand how someone can think that if they've decided to come see me on their own, they're going to decide when to leave on their own. And then he says, do you see that living beings take initiative and do things? And he said, yes, people take initiative. And do you see that people apply energy to what they're doing? He said, yes, I see that. You know, do you see, you know, that people put in persistence in their work and exertion, and they have strength and endurance? And so all of these things, the Buddha said, indicates that we are acting out of our own volition. And it's interesting if we examine what the things are that we do sort of on automatic pilot, and how it is that we can change our deeply ingrained habits. And it really comes first and foremost from making our patterns, our habits, our tendencies conscious. It's conscious awareness, and that's where mindfulness comes in. That we're aware of why we do things. I know you may not know this about me, but I am a mother. I had two kids. I have two kids. They're now middle-aged adults, and I became a nun when they were young adults, I guess. And at some point, various points, I would ask myself what was really behind the decisions I was making when I was raising them. And sometimes when I felt like I was, deciding how to do something, I'd look back and I'd think, no, really, that I learned from my parents. I'm really doing it just the way my parents did it. Maybe that wasn't such a free will of a choice as I thought. But then I can also look at things that I'm doing that are totally opposite of the way my parents did it, or the way I saw other people do it. And so we can look for ourselves to see where we have choice, even for something as simple as, am I going to eat that cookie or not? Am I going to, follow my sort of old track of pattern or not, for whatever it might be? The Buddha thought, he was so clear about the fact that we have choice, that we can decide to do things, even the things that we think are pretty automatic, like anger arising. Sometimes we think it just comes and flares and I can't stop it. And the things that come out of my mouth are just because of that conditioning, that strong emotion. But actually, there's a point where we decide to go with it. And if we can recognize that and then look for that point, where is there a letting go into it? And where is there a point where I can say, no, I'm going to do it differently this time. I'm going to sit with this feeling and be present with it and observe it until it fades. And I'm not going to say a word. We can actually choose to do that. Now, we may not catch ourselves the first time or the first 10 times or whatever it is, but as soon as we catch ourselves, we can go back. We can also go through the sequence of events in our mind and decide, where would I like to change course as I reflect on this next time this happens. So all of these hints that we can pick up on about our own patterns help us to be able to make decisions about how we want to do things differently. The other sections that are in the study guide, one of them, a series of verses in the Dhammapada, talking about the way to live a virtuous life, how to direct the self. Again, the Buddha's using the word attā here. And the importance of developing this conventional self is huge, because it's the foundation for developing in the Dhamma. We can't jump over this part and just go to the more subtle, maybe more interesting kind of ideas in the Buddhist teachings. We have to do this groundwork if we really want to make progress. And the groundwork is in virtue. It's in how we apply our personal strength. It's in how we develop in the Dhamma, in our own ability to know and see directly what is true, the way things actually are. And this is through the self, or you might say through the perception of self, given that this living being here doesn't last based on its own substance. I like the way it's put in some traditions. It can't exist from its own side. The body's going to die. All the khandhas are going to go. The mental characteristics that we might consider, this is me. And like I said, we're going to be diving into that more later. But the important takeaway today is, I have this opportunity to grow, develop, solidify these qualities, these habits, new habits, approaches to life that can help me develop in character. And that those qualities, those new habits, those characteristics will serve you as you go forward to help bring more calm, more peace, more confidence, and to be more trustworthy. So it helps everyone around us. And then those are the only things really that go with us after the body dies. That karma. That's another whole area that I know can be really challenging. How do we know what happens when we die? And I'm happy to talk about that. The Buddha was certainly clear that there's something that comes after this life. He was also really clear that he didn't want us to just take anything on blind faith. So don't believe it because I'm saying it. Don't believe it because he was saying it. It's to really examine for ourselves, see it for ourselves. The way that happens is first and foremost developing those qualities of your character, of our approach to life, to the teachings, to how we work with other people. And then to be able to open up to what we don't know or see yet ourselves. So that direct knowledge, that direct experience can come. So when we look at the Dhammapada verses, I'm not going to go through everything because I really want to encourage everyone to read and ponder what's in the study guide. So you won't get a regurgitation, hopefully, on the day we come together. But the first one, the first verse, talks about holding ourselves dear, or in a different translation by Bhante Sujato, he says, if you love yourself, then you'll watch out for yourself. You'll take care of yourself. And this is extremely important. The Buddha encouraged this love for ourselves. He encouraged us to reflect upon our own goodness. Because what we put our attention on, that's what grows. That's what develops. And then if we put our attention on the good that we do, and I don't mean if we're truly looking at it from a place of appreciation for our goodness, it's not egotistical. It's good to notice that. Whenever the ego is involved, you might notice that there is suffering. There is anxiety. There is a tension in it, a tenseness. And this, if we can notice that and the distinction between that kind of feeling and just the feeling of appreciation and kindness towards ourselves, that really appreciates the things that we do that are helpful, kind, generous, virtuous. I didn't intentionally kill any living beings today. I didn't intentionally lie. I didn't intentionally use sexual energy in a way that was harmful or disruptive or in any way uncomfortable, etc. So I'm kind of going through some of the basic precepts here. And one of the practices that's helpful in this development of the self, quote unquote self, is to take the 5 precepts and to maybe examine them even daily. I've met people who have decided, I'm going to read the 5 precepts every day, and it changes their life. And that's what we're looking at here, changing our life. And you might think, well, hey, my life's pretty good. I don't think I have to change it all that much. But if there's any suffering at all in our life, any dissatisfaction, things don't feel quite right, any of that dukkha, then we want to change. Because when we're fully enlightened, we're not going to be exactly the way we are right now. We're going to be free of a lot of things. That's change. So it's not about, oh, I have to change because I'm such a bad person. That's in the West, that's really a very strong tendency to really beat up on ourselves, to look at the negative. And it's not like we don't want to, we want to know what's there, but then turn our attention to the good. because that's what's going to grow, what we put our attention on. So we look at the things that we do that aren't as we would like them to be, and we learn from it, and we go on. And we develop those things that we want in our life. So the 5 precepts can be really helpful there. And actually, if for anyone who's interested in taking the precepts together, I'm going to stay on after this is over, and you're welcome to stay, and I'll put up a screenshot of the precepts, and we can take the 3 refuges and the precepts, if that's something that you'd like to do. And I can also answer questions about them if you have questions. And you can also take like 4.5 precepts. Sometimes people are like not ready to give up that glass of wine, or and then or you can take the precepts for 24 hours and just see how it feels, or a week. And then just like, oh no, I really want to do this thing that's not in line with the precepts, and then notice how that feels. It's really okay. These are for practice. It's not a commandment. It's not a do this or else. It's a training. But what we learn as we develop virtue in this way is that the mind, it's the mind, but it's the energy becomes more purified. This is something, this states of mind, the energy of the mind, the energy of your system, how people respond to that. If it's got a sense of purity, it feels different. It's a different level of vibration that makes you not want to go back to those things that are more coarse. And the beauty is it's not like you, or at least if we do think, well, I'm better because I keep precepts, or I'm better because, then again, look at the suffering in that. That's something else to have compassion for ourselves over. So this part of loving ourselves, being compassionate towards ourselves, we can have that for other people, and we can have it for ourselves in the same way. This is a very important platform to base our practice on and base our life on. And when the more kind we are to ourselves, the more we want to support this living being that is named Santussika or whoever, right? This living being that is operating here at this point in time in the world, this process that's running. The more I'm kind to this, the more peace I'll experience, the more happiness there'll be, and the more effective we are in helping others and helping our world along. Yeah, I love the idea that we can become completely trustworthy in the world, and no one has to fear us at all for any reason. It's beautiful. And it's very much a part of what the Buddha talked about self. And it's in the last or second to the last, I guess, passage, the Mangala Sutta, the highest blessings. This is a very beautiful description of a really wonderful life, where all the qualities of where we live and what we do for work and how we interact with our loved ones and friends, and it just covers so much ground, and it's a wonderful reference. So where do I want to put more time into? Developing that bit, or something that I've already developed that I want to encourage to blossom further. So on that note of kindness and loving ourselves, I'd like to invite you into meditation. Oh, I promised a little question time, didn't I? If you have questions at this point, clarifying questions about what I just said, or any of the things in the study guide. So Sarah, should I just answer hands, or did you want to do it?
Yeah, it's up to you if you want to answer hands or have folks that type up the questions.
Okay, I'll go in order, and if you see anything that I don't, let me know. Phil, you want to unmute yourself?
Thanks very much. Great start to the program. So I can understand how we shouldn't identify with the conventional conditioned self. But then the important aspect is the impermanence of everything. Can you explain to me, how can karma impact us from life to life if everything is impermanent? What is it that undergoes cyclic rebirth if everything is impermanent? And if we're not the conventional self, then who or what are we?
So this is beautiful, the heart of the matter for us. Okay, so yes, all conditioned things are impermanent. And that would be any form of the 5 aggregates: body, feeling, mental formations, perceptions, consciousness, sense consciousness, at least. The thing that however, it all doesn't end at the same time, you might say. So these sankhara that you see in the chain of dependent origination, those sankhara, I think of them like patterns, habits. Someone told me, so I don't quite know if it's true, but they said they heard the Dalai Lama answer this question: what gets reborn? And he said, your bad habits. But of course, it would be our good ones too. So there are those things that keep going beyond the death of the body. So the body ends, it unravels, all the elements go back to where they came from, I guess you could say. But something keeps going. And the push that causes us to keep going is craving. And what happens, the Buddha says, is then that craving and that karmic stream, those patterns, that unfinished business, that's the way I like to answer what gets reborn. It's the unfinished business. The stuff that hasn't come to rest, that we still want to accomplish, that somehow we want to have that relationship again that ended too soon. Whatever it is that pushes us on to want to continue to be, act in the world, smell, taste, touch, that push and those patterns reestablish in another living being, you might say, reform. And it pulls together a body, and so name and form, sense abilities, and so on. Now, this might seem all really mystical and mysterious, and it is in a way, until people start to do what the Buddha did and had an understanding of recollection of past lives. That's one way that people start to understand, oh, if you've seen how your lives were before, and I'm saying this knowing that most of us don't, right? But there are quite a lot of people who do, actually. So if you see what happened before, oh, in this past life, there was this attraction to something or someone, and it never finished. I still like that. Everything down to like what color you find favorite, everything down to, like this is someone I don't trust because of something that happened before. that all continues on. Does it ever come to an end? Yes, it comes to an end when we realize Nibbana, when there's no more wanting or wanting to get rid of. So it's process. We're in part of a process. We're in a stream, a flow of process. And that process continues. It doesn't need the body to continue with it. It continues and reestablishes, comes together again in another form. So how do we relate to this self? We relate to it as, yes, I'm here. Like one person who comes to some of the things that I teach said that her life has such beautiful conditions. There's been so much good in her life. She knows that those beings who were in her karmic stream in the past did a lot of good. And she said, now I'm determined not to drop the ball. I'm going to do good in this life and keep this flow going in a good way. So that's the way I think of it. It's like a flow of energy. And that energy is pushed by our desires. So I hope that helps a little bit. And you could say, well, how am I going to understand this if I don't see my past lives? But there is another way, an important alternative. So like, you see the primary disciples of the Buddha, the chief disciples. On the bhikkhu side, it was Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, and on the bhikkhuni side, it was Khema and Upalawana. And Khema and Sariputta were known for their great wisdom, and Upalawana and Mahamoggallana were known for their psychic powers. So with psychic powers, you see these past lives. And many of the bhikkhunis who wrote in the Therigatha talk about their ability to see their past lives. It comes with deep meditation sometimes. But for Sariputta, I don't know for sure about Khema, but he didn't have psychic powers, but he had incredible wisdom. So how can you know things without that psychic ability? It's through understanding the Dhamma. At one point he says, I know the drift of the Dhamma. It's the wisdom. It's the direct seeing. When the Buddha talks about the Dhamma being available here and now to see, to know and see directly, experience directly, it comes from deeper reaches of the mind, or I don't know, that's one way to put it. Wherever it comes from, it's something we didn't know before. It's like when the Buddha became enlightened, he said, a knowledge and vision came that was not known before. It still requires virtue, meditation, and wisdom in order for those things to occur. But once then we know it for sure, there's no more doubt.
Thank you. And you have other questions. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Jesse.
Thank you. As a father of 2 elementary school kids, and any reference to family in Pali Canon, jumps out at me in big, bold letters, because sometimes it can be framed in different ways. And so in this passage, it refers to cherishing family, but I struggle sometimes with, I think, some suttas that frame family as a fetter and as a source of attachment. So I'm delighted to hear that you are a parent and have hopefully some wealth of understanding in that regard that maybe other monastics may not. And so I'd love to hear your perspective. How does one cherish family without developing or being ensnared in the kind of clinging and attachment that leads to suffering?
That's exactly the crux of the practice. I mean, family has been a big practice for me as a nun, and it's exactly what you say. It's developing love for them that doesn't have attachment, and that developing that kind of love, metta, is it's an unconditional, boundless love. that can be extended to all beings and to ourselves. So it's the same kind of love we would have for ourselves that doesn't have this stickiness or this ego behind it. And I, you know, it's, of course, we're going to develop attachment to our kids, but then we get to watch that, because when there's suffering, there's attachment in the love. And when the love is more, if it's so completely unconditional, or even a little bit unconditional, I don't know if that's possible, but you can see that at the points where I can really let them go and let them be who they are and make their choices, especially as they get older, because, you know, gradually they're going to make their own choices. By the time they're in the mid-teens or late teens, they're beyond your, they may be beyond your control for sure. In fact, I realized at 2 years old, my son was out of my control. It's like, they have a mind of their own and a stream of their own, the past and where they're going. And so we can try to influence them and care for them. But when we suffer over what they're doing and what they're choosing and what's happening to them, what their karma is, then we know that we're attached. And then we look at that and then we step back and we go, okay, this person, this being, just like looking at myself, this being has its own karma. It has where it's come from and where it's going, and none of where it's going is predetermined. Preconditioned, yes, but not predetermined. So we do what we can to try to guide them in a good way and give them the best example we can give. But we just keep an eye on our own suffering. Now I have grandchildren. Whole new layer of practice. And, you know, it's important to remind ourselves that they could die anytime, that they could make choices that are harmful for them and for other people around them anytime. There could be accidents anytime. And then work at unraveling that attachment. And the more selfless we become with them, the more we can help them, the more they can rely on us, because we don't have any skin in the game for ourselves. We're able to really support them.
Thank you. And I appreciate the use of control. Ajahn Amaro used that in the talk. That spoke a lot to me, that control is one thing we can try to loosen, even if attachment runs very, very deep. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. So this says Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
I felt there was something in the reading of the Dharma that I needed to be clarified on. And hearing you speak right now, I see it's the same point. I've been in a different tradition for 45 years. I have meditated every morning for 45 years. And it's this question of what you brought up about free will. And in my experience, most of what I do during the day is in order to reaffirm this conventional self that is not free in that sense. It's often not even something I choose or like. It's being done because somehow I'm reaffirming even some of my kindness, some of my efforts within, are reaffirming the conventional self. And there was one answer in one's own volition that was, since there is an element of energy and sentient beings who have energy are found, and I mean, energy can mean a lot of things. I don't think it means, energetic. Energy could be attention, and that beings who have attention have some element of wish or will because of a connection to something finer, a connection to something which is not self.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's not the conventional self. It's not my usual consciousness. And mostly, you know, I see that in the silence in my sittings, but also the more I see about myself year after year after year, is that much of what I thought was free will really wasn't. It really wasn't. And to see that and accept that has opened up some of what you said about, you just said, love without attachment. I don't think the conventional self, unless I'm not understanding, and I probably don't have the background to understand, but real pure love as a source is not, again, a feature of the conventional self. I think.
So I don't think of it that way. And I get that you're, you know, there's a lot of ideas about a conventional self and a bigger self. And the Buddha didn't really talk about it that way at all. And this idea of, well, this is coming from somewhere else, which certainly it feels that way. Like when the Buddha said this knowledge and vision arose, that it wasn't known before. But it's like, we can't really honestly identify this other source, which for many people would be God, or you know, the big self or something like that. But the Buddha really wanted us to be very clear in looking at what we're identifying. And the way he talks about this is, it's not like this conventional self has, what am I trying to say? It's not like that we can't access metta or the other sublime states from the conventional self. It's just that the conventional self is a collection of impermanent conditions. And when those conditions come to an end, then it morphs into something else. But that's not related to wisdom, to Dhamma being available to us, or this ability to experience and cultivate the divine abidings. It's all there as part of this process. And we have the will that we have, the will that it took for you to meditate every day for all these years, the will that it took for you to sign up for this course. This is exactly coming through this conventional self. We use this body, we use this mind, and we have to if we want to like develop. We can't do it in any other way here and now. So it's like, don't think about this conventional self as this is a fixed, this is the idea, this is what it has, this is what it's capable of, and this is what it's not capable of. The mind is incredibly powerful. There's so many choices that we have at any moment that we don't even realize we have. When you talk about going through your day, you know, doing things that aren't through your will, it's only because those are at an unconscious level, or that are those unconscious things are motivating you. Make them conscious and you start to choose about them. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sharon? You're muted. Oh yeah, there you are.
Thank you. I would like you to say something about the last little reading that you gave us, Be Your Own Island. And I'm trying to kind of puzzle with that versus the 3 jewels that we take refuge in, and how does that fit?
Well, it fits in that the three, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, start to become one thing. And that is, it's all within the Dhamma. And so that becomes our refuge. So it's not a contradiction. It's just it's looking through a different facet.
Okay.
What I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Jerry.
Yeah, I have a question. Good to see you here. And I have a question about free will. So we have all come here together, you know, by choice somehow. And then I also know, you know, a deer will be in a field, hear the sound, and flees. Yes, that it has that intention. A sea star will chase after a cockle. The cockle will flee. A tree grows towards the light. Are all these have free will?
The Buddha said that the plants, the trees, don't have consciousness. I have seen animals make choices. Dogs, you can tell sometimes if they're going to decide to disobey or not. They seem to pause and make a decision. How much conscious awareness one has to have to be able to do that, I'm not quite sure. And I'm not even sure it matters. I think we have to look at what matters. You know, like, don't get caught up in things that don't inform your system into doing the things that make your mind more peaceful and your life more beautiful.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, so let's go on to meditation. Please find a comfortable position. And when you meditate, you want to be comfortable so that you can really relax. Really let go. I'm going to start by tuning into our breathing. And as a way to get centered and calm. Then I'd like you to put your attention on the soles of your feet. And notice how they feel right now, whether they're on the floor, on the ground, feeling the shoes that they're in, or if your legs are folded upright up to the ceiling, facing up to the ceiling. That those soles of your feet, the toes, the arch, the ball, the heel, and really bringing a sense of appreciation to them, appreciation for all that they offer, all that they've done, all the many places they've taken you. Kindness towards the bottom of your feet. And then begin to expand your awareness a little bit to take in all of the foot, both feet, the tops, and the ankle. And really bring a feeling, a sense of kindness, appreciation, love. The feet have given you so much opportunity carried you so many miles. Just notice how they feel right now. And if there's any discomfort, perhaps some compassion can arise for them. They've been around a while, diligent in their service. And then let our awareness expand to the whole of the lower legs. And the feet are still part of what you're experiencing, what you're noticing, but also your calves and those bones in your lower legs, muscles. And bring some kindness and compassion, appreciation to your lower legs. And then expand your awareness to your knees. These knees that allow you to sit comfortably and stoop and kneel, walk. Having that sense of kindness towards them, compassion for whatever aches or pains might afflict them from time to time. And then taking in the upper legs all the way to the hips, those strong thigh bones that carry you, the muscles, and everything else there. Giving them attention and kindness, love and appreciation for both legs all the way, and feet, feeling how they are right now. Might feel where they meet the ground or the chair, or whatever they're resting on. If they're comfortable. And expand awareness to include up to your waist, that whole lower abdomen, hips, belly, and everything inside. Part of your elimination system, purification system for the body. Your lower back, tailbone, the muscles. How important that is for your health and happiness. compassion for any discomfort, kindness. Then expanding our awareness to everything up to the diaphragm, that layer between the lungs and the stomach. Rest of the digestion, organs and glands to be found there. That portion of the spine. Bringing attention and kindness and love, compassion for the whole operation there, the whole process. Essential for your life. And then expanding awareness to bring in the rest of the torso up to your neck, the lungs, the heart, the ribs, the spine, the muscles, the blood flow, the nerves. Taking in everything from the neck down, the body, legs, feet. Appreciation for all of its work. That heart beating for such a long time, those lungs constantly working to give us life. The glands secreting what's needed to stay balanced. Now we take in the shoulders and the upper arms. That give us an opportunity to do so many things. And then the elbows and the lower arms. Bringing kindness and compassion and appreciation to your arms that hold and hug and help. Then taking in the wrists and hands. Reflect on all the many things these hands have done. Remembering all the good things, the ways in which these hands and arms have supported you and others. Aware of this whole body below the neck, arms and hands, legs and feet, everything in the torso and abdomen. And then we include the neck and the head. Just noticing how it feels right now. The eyes, the tongue, the ears, scalp. What an amazing collection of important components. What an amazing process this body is. A vehicle for our practice, for our ability to love, to show that love and care, kindness. Appreciating this vehicle, this support, that allows us to interact with the world, to see, hear, taste, touch, smell, think, feel. And we can love and care for this body, and also make effort for it to be our last one. To be completely clear that it's going to die, it's going to unravel. It is not self. But to care for it, to love the body, to be kind to the body is a start to being kind to this whole conventional self, this body and mind. Appreciating the opportunity it gives us to practice, to develop. We just rest here in the body with attention on kindness, loving kindness, and that fills this whole body, fills this being, expands beyond it. This kindness that is the foundation for compassion and joy. And remembering that turning our attention towards these beautiful qualities, inviting their increase, their expansion, is one of the many powers of the mind that we can call upon, that we can choose to place attention on and to develop. So now, if you need a break, take it, but come back as soon as you can. And Sarah's going to break us into small groups. But before you go, I just want to remind you, when you're in your small groups, to be mindful of the time. We're going to take 20 minutes. And so there'll be enough time. There's going to be 4 of you in each group. There'll be enough time to for each of you to say something. Please make sure everybody gets their chance, and share the time, and also to keep confidentiality of whatever is said there in the group. Leave it there. Orient your comments to your own experience, from your own experience. And sometimes we call it the no enlightenment rule. You can enlighten yourself, but please refrain from trying to enlighten other people. And so go ahead. When you come back, you'll be in a group. Does that work okay, Sarah? Okay, great. Okay, and if you just hang in and want to stay, that's fine too. I'll see you back here in the main room in about 20 minutes or so. I'll wait another minute or a few seconds as everyone comes back. So there was one slight oversight before I let you go. I don't think I told you what question I was hoping you could discuss, but it did show up in the chat. So whether you saw it there or not, it was, what can you do to be kinder to yourself, love yourself more, and encourage yourself more? So if that wasn't what you talked about, that's fine. I hope you can take that away with you and reflect upon it. And I'm interested in questions, comments, anything that you wish to share about your experience in regard to the self. Yes, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. I had recently heard, and I was trying to find references for it, that actually it was another class through the BSBC. The teacher stated that the Buddha's view on self, on not self, was based on the common in India at the time view of self as Atman, as sort of a universal, not universal, but as a soul. And I pieced together, maybe it's not true, that the Buddha, like most leaders, are a little revolutionary. He didn't care for the fact that the Brahmins were using their birth status to dominate the rest of society. And so his self point of view was not, there is no grand self that's superior, you know, we're all the same. And so and there is no soul that you can then use to dominate in the caste system. So that makes sense to me. Do you agree with that point of view? Or I don't know how well I gave it justice because I'm still learning.
I think I understand. I mean, clearly we've all encountered religion, religious doctrine and philosophies about the divine, the omnipotent, omnipresent, you know, what's the other omna? You know,
Omniscient.
And omniscient, thank you. Yes, exactly. And I don't believe that the Buddha chose to talk about not self because of the Brahmins or their power. He reported on the experience of the Dhamma. And so we're going to talk about this in more detail next week. But he wasn't forming doctrine out of some ideas or responses to what people were doing. He was reporting the way things actually are through direct experience. He knew that through direct experience. And he said, just look. And we'll see in the readings next time where he says to the monks, can you find anything that can be called self? And so what he is using this idea of an everlasting, unchanging self, a soul that continues and will last forever, and that the soul and the world is one, and I'm going to be lasting forever once I die. He's using that, and he says, you tell me where you find that to be true. And that's exactly what we need to do, is do that same examination to know whether or not there is such a thing. So we're going to talk about this more next time, and you'll see it in the readings, in the simile of the snake. So when you take a look at the study guide for next time, so what I'm going to do is post the readings for next time in the same document as they are for this time, but we're going to post them at the top so you don't have to scroll through part 1 to get to part 2. It'll be all in reverse order, but that's probably just the way it's going to be easiest to use. And I'm also not going to post the whole sutta. In that case, the simile of the snake from the middle length discourses is very long and has a lot of components, but I really encourage reading it all. If you go back to the source, there are links. There will be links that you can follow to get to it online. And you might have your own Nikaya books around that you can, take to bed and read. So yeah, that's what I notice. I mean, when you get into the suttas and you really see how the Buddha based his teaching, it was all on what you could actually experience, and he never oversteps that. So we have a very good model for what's possible to know directly ourselves. It's really powerful and inspiring. Thank you for your question, Jerry.
Thank you for your answer.
Patty.
Ayya, it's good to see you. Good to be here. This question that I have leads directly into direct experience. And actually one of your next suttas may be what I'm asking about, and I hope I don't put you on the spot, but I hope you remember which sutta it is that the Buddha says, and I don't remember to whom, if you have a self, can you say to yourself, I will not be sick, and you will not be sick? Mm-hmm. And then he gives about, 8 or 10 examples of that. And mm-hmm. and if you can't do that, can you tell me what that sutta is and talk
I know
more about it? Yeah.
He does talk about this in the Anattā Sutta, which is the second discourse that he gave, according to what we've got preserved in the Pali Canon. When the Buddha was enlightened, various things happened, but then he went back to find the 5 ascetics that had been practicing with him previously. And the first teaching he gives is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which is setting the wheel of Dhamma in motion, talking about the 4 Noble Truths. And according to what we know, the second teaching was on not self. And in there, he talks about exactly that. If this body were self, you would be able to say, let it be like this, and it'll be like this. Now that kind of hard to understand at first. And we'll talk about it more next week. But that's also represented in our readings for next time. So you can really ponder that. See,
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Patty.
Good evening, Ayya and everyone. I just wanted, in our little group, we talked about what really holds us back from being kind to ourselves or others. And the two thoughts we came up with was often a lack of patience or compassion.
Yes.
And I was wondering if there are many hands up I can see. So I was wondering if you could just give us one example of how each could be used skillfully, because that's the intent eventually, to be able to do well in life, to take the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. So patience, I mean, the place where I think we often lack patience is when we do something unskillful again, or the same strong emotions arise again. We fall into the same pattern again, and we feel like I should be finished with this. But to bring patience to it means to come to it from a place of mindfulness, that this experience is an experience we can observe. It becomes an object to us, and we can bring compassion around it. So I guess we can bring both of those qualities you mentioned, which are so important. We can bring compassion to our own places where we feel we want to improve, or maybe we've done something that we would like to not do again, and then learn from it and let it go. And then the patience comes if that same pattern shows up again, but always coming to it as best we can with mindfulness, with compassion, with understanding, but also a determination to do it differently next time. So thank you for that. If we could have the kindness for ourselves, the patience that we would want to have for the most dear being, our own child, or some sweet animal, or whatever it is, if we can have that for ourselves, we'll make much more progress.
Thank you, Ayya.
Barbara?
I liked our small group, and I'll share, I just came out of a different retreat, and the retreat, one thing that I got from the retreat, and I'm trying to interweave it with what you're presenting today. So what I got out of the retreat was, I'm not running the show. I'm not in control. And yet today, I don't know, help me interweave that with what you're sharing today, please. I'm trying to keep it brief.
I think I can keep it very brief. There's very little we have control over in this life. We have control over what we say, what we do, and what we think. And to the degree that we can bring up the mindfulness and the proper intention, we can control those things, and that is it. So it's good to recognize what do we have agency over and what we do not. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, I'm sorry, Mimo, a little bit quick, okay? So
no problem. Thank you, Ayya. And it's really two quick questions. One regarding tension, how to deal with it during meditation, stress and tension. And when we did this meditation today, I found it a little bit hard to give compassion to individual parts of the body. I can think about compassion to another person or to myself, but not to a particular part of the body. Any suggestions on how to deal with those two issues?
Okay. What was the first one again? Sorry.
About tension and stress during meditation.
Yes. Oh, these two are kind of related, aren't they?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can bring mindfulness, it's really establishing mindfulness as you sit down to meditate. Means, of course, that you see, you observe, you're present with the tension, with the discomfort, and that being present with it already begins. If we can see the spark of compassion in that already, it's helpful. The spark of kindness. And so by being present with, instead of caught up in or wishing it would go away or being upset with ourselves that it's there, somehow this is a bad meditation or this is a failure in some way, letting all that go aside to the best of our ability and be present with the experience. And then again, it might never be the sort of the meditation that works for you. We're different. We operate, all of us, different channels are more effective than others, and we have to look at what works for us. So using the body in this way might never be your cup of tea, but it also might, if you play with it a little bit more and notice where you're holding that tension. And then notice that part of the body, maybe that's the shoulders. I remember when I was doing software design, I'd leave work and I'd feel so painful in the shoulders. I didn't notice it all day, right? But as soon as I leave, there it is. And then to have some compassion for those shoulders that are holding all that. I didn't know how to do that then. I'm glad that I know now. And just use it as a way to play, to just experiment and see what comes with this intention of kindness. Thank you. So we went a few minutes over. I apologize. I want you to know how much I appreciate all of your practice. And I'm going to stay on if anyone wants to, as they say, take the refuges, the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, or ask questions about those. I'll be here for you for that. So just stay on and we'll do that together. Otherwise, I wish you a really good week. We'll be posting the next study materials, I hope this evening. And I'm not exactly sure when the video from this conversation will come online, but it will be at our YouTube channel for Karuna Buddhist Vihara, and there'll be a link in the next study guide section. So if there's anything that you said today that you'd like not to be put up, then write to karunabv.org. No, info@karunabv.org, and then we'll make sure that that doesn't get posted. So take good care of yourselves, love yourselves. Yes, practice noticing where you're attached to this impermanent entity, conglomeration of processing, and let that go if you can, so that you can be happy and free. Thank you.